Today, I want to talk to you about a very practical AI screenwriting workflow for developing professional screenplays faster. Now, this is a very simple workflow that allows you to move through screenplay development processes with more clarity, more structure, and the right tools that make it faster, right? So throughout, I'm going to show you a project that I'm actually working on so you can see how I personally interact with the app. So a lot of people, this is kind of a little bit of a recap. If you haven't been here the last couple of weeks, a lot of people hear AI and they just assume the goal is to automate creativity or just rush to pages as quickly as possible. And that's not how I use it. It's not how I recommend using it if you want to, let's say, compete and make great stories. Now, if you want to just have fun, go for it. I'm all for, you do you, but I'm here to show you how professionals are using it and how you can get the best results out of it. So a real advantage is that AI can help you move through development with more clarity and options. So instead of just replacing the writer, it supports the writer and gives you a better environment for thinking. And that becomes really important because screenwriting is about making better creative decisions before the pages really ever exist. Yeah, so in previous sessions, we talked about optionality. Optionality is the single most powerful thing that AI gives us. Yes, it's faster, but we don't focus on speed. We focus on creative options. Now, there's a host of models in Scriptmatix that you can play around with to get a multiple options across character, relationships, plot, etc. And when you look at multiple possibilities side by side, you stop clinging to the first thing that you came up with just because it arrived first, right? You can actually evaluate what the strongest idea is. And that is a huge advantage creatively. It makes your work more creative. So once you've explored all possibilities, the next step is to write the screenplay, right? And doing it with creative control. And that is where really the control model comes into play. The feature screenplay control, you have the TV drama controls, and the short control models. And the control model is for screenwriters who just want to shape their screenplays phase by phase. And the model guides you through development all the way to completed script, meaning you're going to start with your overview. You're going to give all the stuff that you know that you've developed. Remember, in the last sessions, if you were with me, we talked about development. Development is the single most important phase of working with AI. You should actually spend most of your time in developing the ideas, the characters, the relationships, because everything downstream is just kind of grow out of that, right? Now, I'll say one more thing. The control model is the go-to when I'm working personally with different clients and production studios and professional writers. The control model seems to be, for everyone, kind of the one that they gravitate towards the most, simply because most writers, when they're coming into writing a new project, they have the idea and they want to just develop their idea, right? If you go into other models, say, for example, like the creative model, it's going to do some of the creative lifting for you. And that, again, that's fine, but it's not going to be as customized. And I think most of us here, if we're trying to really write something for the screen or we're really trying to be serious about our writing, we know that we need to be in control of everything that we put onto the page. So this model guides development all the way, again, from the beginning, the ideas that you have, all the way to a finished screenplay. And so the reason the control is my go-to model is simply because you're in the driver's seat, like I said, all the way, super simple. That's why we call it control. Now, even when you're in control, you still want help. And that's where features like the plot options become incredibly useful when developing each plot beat. Now, I'm going to show you my screen. I'm going to toggle between these two in just a moment. So stick with me. I'm going to actually demonstrate what this looks like, okay? Now, as you move through these opening plot phases in the control model, meaning like I'm going to show you my project, which is a 4-act TV drama, meaning I'm developing my teaser, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and Act 4. Okay, that's 5 plot phases. And as you move through those plot phases, there will be moments where you know exactly what you want, or maybe roughly what you want. And you want options, maybe more options for beats in those stages. This is precisely what the plot options is for. It lets you generate fresh creative possibilities on demand as you go. So the best way to use it is honestly, it's not to start from nothing, even though you totally could, right? It's to start with what you already know that you like. Then use plot options to expand around that instinct, because now you're giving just more intelligence to the system, saying, you know, this is really the direction I'm going with, and now we'll give you options that align with that better. Now, you may also find that plot options gives you some ideas that you just don't quite want, but they give that thing that it gave you kind of gives you the next idea that you do want. If that's happening to you, it's a great sign. That happens to me a lot, right? The plot options opens up a door, and I just find what I'm looking for inside of that door. Let me show you real quick what this looks like. So the first question in most of these models is going to be describe your story. And here I have a log line. This is a thing that I'm writing about Nikola Tesla, about his, you know, his fighting to establish himself all the way to the moment in the pilot episode where he moves to America. And I go through these plot phases. I have my teaser, and I already knew. I came into this, I was like, I know what I want the teaser to be. So I put in my teaser, great. I go to my next stage here. And again, this is just the scaffolding. This is the blueprint. If you were here last week, you understood that I told you, I gave you a couple different ways to create a blueprint. A very character-centric blueprint, which was based on some model stacking that we did, a little bit more advanced stuff, and then a very simple blueprint, which was just, you know, you have a TV drama blueprint or a feature screenplay blueprint that you can use. And you can plug in, or you can look at those options and you can plug them into here. This isn't supposed to be super robust. This is just to get your ideas out there. Now, for this one, you know, I may get to act one. I got my teaser. I'm now developing in act one. I'm like, maybe it's a little thin. So what I go to is under these plot sections. If I click on the wand, I can go to plot options. And plot options is going to open up. It's going to depend on where you are. It's going to take maybe 15 to 25, 30 seconds to load some options. But this is really what it does. I've put in some stuff that I like, and I want to get some more ideas because I feel like maybe my act one's a little thin. Or I may come into act one and be like, you know, I don't really know where I want to go with it. Give me some options to open some doors. So it does. It gives me several options. And I may say, you know what, I like this one, or I maybe like this one, or I want to regenerate. Give me some fresh options. And you can do that. You can just keep getting fresh options. And that's how I like to work. I may pick several options and then say, you know what, I really want to go here. And what I'll usually do, this is my workflow, guys, is I'll just open the rewrite at that point and I'll just say, you know, streamline these beats into a cohesive act one, you know, narrative, whatever, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll process that and it'll organize it. I'll spend a few minutes here, just try to polish it up. Now I'm off to the next. And okay, act two, I want some more ideas. And again, I can go to my plot options. You kind of get it. Also, a little feature that we have here is the assistant. This is kind of my research feature, right? So I may ask, you know, when was Nikola Tesla born, et cetera. This is going to give me, it's a research tool. It's a troubleshooting tool. You can dump text in there. You can ask for some sort of feedback. This is your assistant. So it's a really valuable thing to just kind of have open. Sometimes I have multiple windows open and I'm just kind of going through this, going through each plot phase, okay? Let me get back to the slides now. Now that you've populated the plot phases, let's say we went through teaser, act one, act two, act three, act four. You've populated everything. Now you're going to want to generate your plot. It's probably not perfectly populated, by the way. It's probably not perfectly organized, and that's okay. You have your core beats. That's what's important. But this is where you click generate plot on the top right. Once you get to that last question, you've done it all, click generate plot. And what comes out is a plot treatment. And this is the first moment where the story really starts to feel much more cinematic, because now the phase by phase decisions that you made are being translated into a fuller, more dramatic and cinematic version of the story. And obviously this is important. You're no longer just looking at isolated answers or separate dramatic fragments here. Story Engine delivers a very cohesive narrative. And that gives you a much better sense of tone, rhythm, logic, progression, and coherence at this point. So generate plot is not just, say, a convenience step. I would say think about it more like the overview that we just looked at was you telling the writer's room everything that you want. And the generate plot is your writing team putting a plot treatment into form. Let me show you what this looks like now. If you missed last week, don't worry about it. It's actually in the writer's room. You can rewatch it, everybody. Everything I post everything top of week in case you missed the previous week's session. So you saw what I input and into the overview, and this is what I got back. A very, dense but cinematic plot treatment. And once that plot treatment is generated, you might find that there are things that you want to change naturally. I would say a lot with working with people, we're looking at probably on average, like people like about 85% of it, right? It's going to be the story that you gave it. But when we're talking about the connective tissue that tie things together, Story Engine is kind of doing that, right? So again, you're the head of the writer's room. You said, these are the plot beats. This is my main scaffolding here. Give me the plot treatment. It's going to give you stuff, but you may want to change it, okay? So this is where the rewrite toolkit really becomes essential. And the rewrite toolkit is right here, this button, okay? Now you can use presets for quick targeted punch-ups to existing material, meaning it's not going to reinvent anything for you. So there's 3 categories here on the plot treatment. And by the way, these presets, they change per phase. You're going to have different ones on your outline, different ones on your script. But here on the plot treatment, you're going to see, okay, I want to punch up my character. I want to clarify motives. I want to clarify their wants versus their needs. I want to increase moral pressure, all the way down to maybe clarify the key relationship or the conflict. I want to raise stakes. I want to increase urgency, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and structure. So these are the 3 categories in which you can punch up. Very quick injection. You can read the teaser and say, yeah, maybe I want a clearer turning point or something like that. You can find that preset, right? Now, you can also use custom instructions in the rewrite window when you want to tell the system exactly what you want to do in your own words, and that's right here. This is all. I use this if I'm introducing, especially if you're introducing an element or you're taking away an element. I don't want to get too much into how to prompt, but I would say the simplest way to tell people is speak to AI like it's a baby. Meaning, if I had say I had a dog, this is an actual situation with a writer last week. He writes, "I don't want a dog in this teaser." Well, AI may change that dog into a cat. What you want to say is remove the dog entirely from the plot phase. You have to speak very specifically about what you want. I'll probably have to do a session on this sometime in the future, but rewriting is really great for when you want to introduce new elements, remove elements, be very surgical and specific. Now, you can also do an inline revision if you want to surgically change specific areas right inside the treatment. So for example, I may say, I want to rewrite just this paragraph right here. Now I can give my input and I can rewrite this paragraph, or I can just take this line or these lines. And what I typically do here when I'm doing this inline is I'm just adding, like, add more specificity. Explain how he, give me a deeper explanation or more specific explanation of this particular moment. Because sometimes, things may be a little bit vague and you're like, I really wish I had more specificity. Or you may say, I just want to make this more efficient, reduce some of the verbosity, right? So that's how you get really surgical. And now a very cool feature we also have here is Smart Tips. And Smart Tips is a very strong a story engine analysis machine that is going to identify opportunities in specific moments. So for the teaser, Act 1, Act 2, all these plot phases from the plot treatment, you can analyze based on character, conflict, or structure, right? So let's just say I have a character. I want to get some help with my character. It's going to process, and it's going to give me 3 options. And from these 3 options, I can select them and I can apply them, okay? Very valuable tool, especially in outline. We're going to get there. It'll increase the quality of your writing, tremendously, and these notes are extremely high level. So at this stage, you should be very active, right? You should be pressing on the material. You should be tightening things. You should be clarifying transitions between events, right? Between your teaser, your act one, your act two. You should be strengthening the cause and effect. You should be improving the escalation. You should be making sure the dramatic engine is really working. And this is one of the most important lever points in this entire workflow. I showed you the assistant before. I said, I'm here just saying, don't forget the assistant. You know, it's that the bot right on the very top. And this is really for brainstorming new directions. I like to use it for soundboarding your instincts, solving maybe some structural problems. Researching details is a key one, and just talking through creative questions as they arrive. This matters, particularly to me, because sometimes the right next move is not another generation. Sometimes the next move is really just a conversation. And sometimes you need help diagnosing why something feels a little off. Sometimes you want, say, for example, 5 alternatives to a weak turn, or you want to research a world detail. Or for example, we were working on a project a few days ago. Give me 10 different bizarre ways in which someone could quit their job. 10 very unusual ways, because the character is quitting their job. And we just want to get some more ideas and maybe supplement that inside of the treatment. So the assistant is really great just to have there as a chat to be able to do that. So that's exactly what it's for. It should be part of your process really at every single stage. Now, this stage matters more than people realize, and I just want to emphasize it at this point, because if the escalation is weak here, it will feel weak in the scenes, because what you're going to, from the plot treatment here, is when you click generate outline, you're getting the step outline. Every scene of your screenplay is kind of there, done. And now obviously I'm going to show you the rewrite toolkit, how you can modify that, add scenes, tweak stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But the structure will inherit what is built in the plot treatment. So the more precision and intentionality that you bring to your plot treatment, the more efficient every subsequent stage really becomes. In my opinion, a strong plot treatment is the second greatest investment you can make in this whole workflow, the first one being the overview, obviously. So if you get this right, you really save yourself a ton of time, and that is really a major part of writing faster the right way. Not by cutting corners and being like, okay, this is good enough, let's generate, but by solving the right problems earlier. So once that plot treatment feels solid, now we're ready to generate outline, right? And this is where the treatment really becomes a step outline. We're now one step away from screenplay pages, because now your story is no longer just a flowing narrative treatment. It becomes a sequence of dramatic units, right? Scene by scene, and you can evaluate one by one. So for me, this is really the funnest part, because you're now really immersed in the story in a whole new way, at a whole new level, because you're moving from one scene to the next, and it's just naturally more cinematic, right? You can see whether scenes are earning their place. You can check whether tension is building from one plot phase to the next, whether transitions are clean, and whether the story is really moving with force. So the outline is where the treatment really gets translated into clear structure. I'm going to show that to you now real quick so we get a visual on it. So this is remember we went from the treatment, and now we went to a 49 scene outline. And I've already done some edits to this, clearly, but I wanted to show you how it looks. I could add some scenes here. There's different tools. Obviously, we have the smart tips. I'm going to get into that. You can label them. You can add some notes as you go through. That's typically the way I do it, right? I'm going to go through. I'm going to read everything. I'm going to take some notes. I'm going to flag some things. I have my own taxonomy when it comes to color coding my tags. And you go through, your scenes one by one. Now, this is, like I said earlier, a stage where I really encourage people to use the smart tips. It's extremely powerful here, and use them aggressively. I use them on every single scene, and Story Engine will give you stuff that is so high level, and it improves your scene so drastically. And as a result, your script, the next phase, benefits tremendously, meaning the script. It's the difference between, in my opinion, an average good first draft and a really good first draft. You have all of the same tools as we discussed. You have the rewrite toolkit, which let's go up here. Here we have the different presets: intent, conflict, and structure, slightly different. You also have the same thing we discussed before. You have the inline rewrite if you want to rewrite just specific areas. You have the assistant at your disposal at all times to chat things out. Everything you need to work is here. And so this is, I just say utilize everything, especially the smart tips. It's always, if you want to get really a high level analysis, Story Engine gives you that stuff. You look at it, you make the decisions. Remember, and I've had a lot of people ask me this over the last several weeks, about analysis. I say, always take analysis with a grain of salt. The difference is that these are rewrite suggestions. We're not just doing an analysis. We're kind of, we're giving you something that you can implement right away. It's kind of a low cognitive load way of just like, oh, wow, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I want to implement that. Click, it implements the no. So take a look at them. You have nothing to lose, right? By looking and seeing like, okay, well, how can I improve my characters, or how can I improve my intent or my structure or my conflict in this particular phase? Let me get back to my slide so I can see where I am real fast. All right, so once the outline is fully developed, now naturally we're going to generate script. And at that point, you have the first draft aligned with your vision. If you gave this thing 49 scenes in your outline, you're going to get 49 scenes in your script. It's the blueprint, right? It's a really strong architecture when you get into this outline of what you're going to get back. So everything you've done, because you've done the upstream work properly, this draft is not coming out of nowhere, right? And this is to James's question earlier, right? It is built on your decisions, every one of your decisions. So compared to a script generated without, say, structure, this draft has a fundamentally stronger base just because you were there every step along the way. It's original. You're not going to have something AI generic, right? AI slop, AI generic. That is not what you're going to get here. This is entirely built on the choices that you made. So you have the same tools. The presets are different at each stage, like I said, but the fundamental tools are the same. You have the rewrite toolkit. It's there for targeted rewrites using the presets and the custom instructions. You have the inline revisions, lets you edit lines or paragraphs directly on the page as you read it. And you have the smart tips to analyze the work and suggest some quick revisions that you can implement right away. And of course, the assistant is still there whenever you need to solve a problem or talk through a creative challenge in real time. As we all know, writing is rewriting, right? And a strong workflow should support rewriting just as well as it supports generation. And so that's exactly what we have here. We have all those tools, and you live with it. You can get analysis. You can do what you will with it. This is going to be a very strong first draft. I think probably, I would say once the system was fully built, it's for some of the people that know me here, I wrote a screenplay in 3 days for a client. A producer hired me because they were in a jam. They had a writer for hire fall through in a very messy situation, and I had to take an outline and I had to get it out to them in 3 days, and I did, and that project ended up getting funding, which tells you the quality of the work that you can get out really fast is really, really high. So we're almost done here. I'm gonna take your Q&As, guys. If you have questions, make sure that you put them down there. So when we zoom out, this is the bigger picture. This workflow helps you move faster without becoming careless. Of course, you could become careless. You could just like click through and just get a very like average script that you wouldn't feel, let's say, authorship or emotional attachment to it. That's the phenomenon. I discussed this in the last couple of weeks. Some people, most people, when they use AI, they get this phenomenon of like, they feel empty. They feel worthless. It's because they lost authorship, right? They didn't own the decisions. And that is what, I'm here to let you know that if you just own the decisions, every decision along the way, you feel attachment to it. You feel like you have the affinity for the material. So this is all momentum without loss of authorship. It's support without dependency, right? You're still the force behind it, the creative force. And the most important thing is this: upstream work pays dividends downstream. The better your thinking is earlier, the better your outcome is going to be later. Hence, as I said in previous sessions, development is everything when working with AI. Spend most of your time in developing the idea. So the final recap here, the sequence is very simple, right? First, use the control model to shape the story phase by phase with intention. Use the plot options, whether you need to expand beats or break them, into break through maybe a weak section or something. You get the options at your disposal. Second, you're going to generate that plot and then revise that plot treatment deeply. Third, you're going to generate that outline and treat that outline like a real structural blueprint. Push on it, test it, strengthen it. The tool is fast. You don't need to feel the need to rush. You're still going to get through this stuff very fast, comparatively fast. I mean, listen, guys, we used to, the fastest I've written a first draft, I've written a first draft maybe in 4 days, but there was development for like a month, right? There was a ton of like notes and outlining and stuff like that. And then you get into the draft. So we're talking about, you can get through this thing very fast. Do not rush. You do not need to rush. Third, we generate the outline, right? So we treat the outline, like I said, like this blueprint that we're going to really commit ourselves to. And then we're on fourth, we're going to generate the script and build your first draft on a much stronger foundation. And throughout the entire process, you're going to use the tools. You're going to use the rewrite tools, the toolkit. You're going to use the smart tips. You're going to use the inline revisions, and you're going to use the assistant to really stay intentional. And that's basically it. The most important part is have fun doing it. I find it to be a lot of fun. Let me do one quick little demo before I get to your Q&As, guys. So here's the script. And I'll tell you just very quickly, my workflow on outline and on script is basically the same. What I do is I'm reading everything first. If I see something that I want to change, I kind of always have my rewrite open. Oops, this is okay. I always have my rewrite open as I'm reading stuff. I'm just reading it. I'm saying, okay, great. I want to do this, et cetera, et cetera. I want to do this thing. Okay, I'm noticing this. I do this to do a quick injection. I'm just like, okay, great. I know what I want. Let me inject this rewrite real fast. Or let me also add a couple here presets that I can just punch up the story or the scene really, really quickly. Then I reread it. I will do some manual edits. I'll do some inline rewriting, right? Go with the inline here. Change this part, more specific, expand on this part with more intentionality, whatever it may be. And I'm just kind of flowing from one to the next, one scene to the next. And that's the workflow. I think, we always learn in film school that we don't stop. It's really important that you go to the finish line. And before, how it used to work is, we would do our development work, but once we got into it, it's like the first draft was the finish line. We always had to get to the first draft. And I still think that premise holds today. You want to go forward, but you want to do all the prep first. You want to make sure that you're super satisfied and you feel really in control of what you're building in the beginning. And then everything becomes easier, but you still do your due diligence and you just go forward. You don't look back. Once you do your pass, great. You read it again and you do the little tweaks. We all do that, right? I plug in my headphones. I listen to the score that I, found for a movie that I think is perfect for my script. And I'm just immerse myself in the story and I'm just going. And I'm just writing and living in the world and breathing it and then getting the draft out. So that's it, guys. That's it for the presentation today.